Okay, Craig did another video, and I've already lost. I've already lost because he put a time limit on it. I can't believe he put a time limit on it. I mean, how dastardly for him to do that. He is a dastardly dastard. That's what he is. I mean, he puts it up at 11, what was it, 11 o'clock at night, and then wanted me to have a response within 6 hours. So yeah, it was a little difficult for me to do that. But anyways, here's my already admitting defeat response. Okay, before I actually go to scripture here, I think it's important to reiterate what I said before. I don't think that Craig took it as serious as I would have liked him to, although he has begun to read encyclicals and try to understand the meaning of an encyclical and the role it plays in Catholic life. But specifically the three at the very, very beginning. Providentissimus Deus by Leo XIII, Spiritus Paracletus by Pope Benedict XV, and Divino Afflante Spiritu by Pope Pius XII. The first one's on the study of Holy Scriptures. The second one is on St. Jerome, also dealing with study of Scriptures. And the next one is promoting biblical studies, commemorating the 50th anniversary of Pope Leo's encyclical on the study of Holy Scriptures. And so, if you were to read that, he would see that, yeah, we do have a right and even a responsibility to try to read and understand Scripture, and this doesn't in any way imply sola scriptura. If anything, it implies that yes, we can know certain things, and that we are given the Scriptures, and we should be able to understand them and read them to the best of our ability, but we need to read them and understand them within a certain framework, and that framework is provided to us by the Church. Just because we have a framework, and just because we can't go out beyond the framework, or we can't contradict those things that the framework is made up of, just because we can't do that doesn't mean that we can't read the Bible. It doesn't mean, our reading it doesn't mean that we believe in sola scriptura. And, you know, when you say, well, the Pope's never actually interpreted a scripture, okay, here's what we mean by this, right? Is that when you have two rival positions, let's say you have the idea that baptism of infants is right and baptism of infants is wrong, or even better, that that baptism of infants actually regenerates the child, or baptism of infants merely washes away original sin but doesn't actually infuse anything within the child. Let's just say that. You have this debate that's raging within the Church, and it would be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally the Church would make a verdict on the issue. That would mean that those verses in the Scripture would be harmonious and lead to the conclusion that when a child is baptized, not only is it essential that a child is baptized, when a child is baptized, it is also regenerated. It's not simply a washing away of original sin, it's also infused with something else. Okay, that's what we would mean by that. So every scripture, these things would now be understood within that framework, within that light. So that's what we mean. They're not going verse by verse by verse and saying, well, this is the infallible interpretation of that specific verse. Now, we may have ones. We may say, well, this would have ramifications on how we would understand this. We would say the infallible understanding then of John chapter 6 would be, yes, this is really his body and really his blood, because the infallible understanding of this matter has been declared such and such. So that's how that would work. But to insist that that we understand it and that we apply it in a way that goes verse by verse, saying, well, this is the interpretation of that specific one, no, that's just a misunderstanding of what we actually believe. Okay. Now we're going to look at Scripture real quick because he references Exodus 32. And the people, seeing that Moses delayed to come down from the mount, gathering together against Aaron, said, Arise, make us gods that may go before us. For as to this Moses, the man that brought us out of the land of Egypt, we know not what has befallen him. And Aaron said to them, Take the golden earrings from the ears of your wives and your sons and daughters, and bring them to me. And the people did what he had commanded, bringing the earrings to Aaron. And when he had received them, he fashioned them by the founder's work, and made of them a molten calf. And they said, These are thy gods, O Israel, that have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and made a proclamation by a crier's voice, saying, Tomorrow is the solemnity of the Lord. Now, the contention was that these people had made an image of Yahweh. They were striving to make an image of Yahweh. That doesn't seem to be the text whatsoever. In fact, what they were saying was that they didn't know what happened to this Moses character, but they wanted an image to represent gods, in the plural. Okay, make us gods that may go before us. This wasn't just a monotheistic thing. This would be a polytheistic thing. Now, the idea of whether or not it would have been in one statue or many different statues, that was later to be seen because it was in Aaron's hands to do so. Right? But Aaron goes along with it, says, Take your golden earrings and give them to me. And then he made the founder's work and everything like that. And then they said, These are thy gods, O Israel, that have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. They were attributing they were attributing what was the work of the monotheistic Yahweh to a number of different gods. And then all these different gods were somehow symbolized by one golden calf. Yeah. These are thy gods, right there. When they looked at the molten calf. These are thy gods. It wasn't these represent or these are a pictorial image. They were literally attributing to that molten calf. They were attributing the acts of Yahweh. Extraordinarily problematic. Thankfully, it's not something that Catholics do when looking at sacred images or looking at icons or any of these things. I think it would do well for anyone wanting to get into a discussion of this matter. Actually, I think Craig may have actually read this book. This isn't directed to him. He's far more well-versed than most people I know. But when going into topics like this, to read encyclicals and to read books like On Sacred Images, read that book, okay, and find out the controversy. Find out what the iconoclast controversy was all about. Find out what that is, and the so-called triumph of orthodoxy. Okay, how the Orthodox understand this, the triumph over the iconoclasts. So, I mean, they have an entire day, a major celebration dedicated to it. But the thing is understand what it's about, understand what we do, understand what we don't do, understand what we mean and what we don't mean. And I think when people begin to do this, a lot of these difficulties are kind of tossed to the wind. I'm not saying they go away completely. What I am saying is that they'll definitely be minimized. And they'll definitely be put into some kind of a context wherein we can have a more meaningful and productive conversation without having to wade through a bunch of issues that are really non-issues. Amen.